Claude is starting to put hidden watermarks inside AI-generated text. Not a visible label, not a line at the bottom saying made with AI, an invisible machine-readable signal embedded inside ordinary words. And I think this should concern everyone, because this is not just about Claude. It is not just about complying with European regulation. This is a preview of what cloud AI becomes when governments, platforms, and trillion-dollar AI companies all start agreeing that your generated output should carry hidden machine-readable signals. And once that happens, the question is not, is AI useful? The question is, who controls the tool you're using? Because if the model runs on someone else's server, under someone else's policy, with someone else's detection system, then your output may not really be yours in the way you think it is. It may be logged, it may be watermarked, it may be detectable by systems you cannot inspect. And that is why for anything private, sensitive, creative, political, experimental, or professionally important, the answer is becoming obvious. Use local AI models whenever you can. Run the model on your own machine, own the weights, own the output. Because the alternative is trusting the same companies and regulators building the invisible control layer. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this. Now, back to the video. Anthropic is adding machine-readable marking to Claude outputs. For text, that means an imperceptible watermark. For supported files and images, that can mean signed provenance metadata, which is basically information attached to a file about where it came from and how it was created. The reason this is happening now is the EU AI Act. Article 50 says providers of AI systems that generate synthetic audio, image, video, or text content need to mark outputs in a machine-readable format and make them detectable as artificially generated or manipulated where technically feasible. That sounds dry. It is not dry. It means AI companies are being pushed to build detection into the output itself. And because large AI companies do not want to maintain completely different behavior everywhere, these systems tend to spread globally. So even if you're not in the EU, the regulation can still shape the tool you use. A rule appears in one jurisdiction. The big platforms build a compliance system. Then everyone inherits the compliance system. Suddenly, the model you use for writing, coding, brainstorming, and drafting is not just generating text. It is generating text with a hidden compliance artifact attached to it. Cloud AI is not just intelligence. Cloud AI is intelligence wrapped in policy, and the more powerful these systems become, the more policy gets wrapped around them. Text watermarking is strange because there are no pixels to hide in. With an image, you can imagine a watermark being embedded into the image data. With video, you can imagine a signal being added across frames. With audio, you can imagine something hidden in frequencies, but text is just words. So how do you hide a watermark in normal writing? The basic idea is that language models do not choose every word with total certainty. When a model writes a sentence, it is constantly choosing between many possible next tokens. Sometimes there's one obvious answer, sometimes there are several reasonable choices. For example, the model might choose between important, critical, essential, and necessary. All of those can fit. A watermarking system can slightly bias those choices in a patterned way to a human. The text still looks normal, but across enough words, a detector can look for the statistical pattern. So the watermark is not a stamp. It is not a secret symbol hidden between paragraphs. It is a pattern in the model's choices. That is why longer text is easier to mark and detect. A long email, essay, article, script, or report gives the system more room. And yes, there are limits. Heavy rewriting can weaken the signal. Translation can weaken it. Mixing human and AI text can make detection harder. Short factual answers can be harder to watermark because there are fewer natural choices, so this is not magic. But it is still a very big deal because it means the model is not just answering you. It is also shaping the answer so someone else's machine may be able to recognize it later. That is the part that feels so invasive. The strongest argument for watermarking is simple. AI-generated content is flooding the internet and people need a way to tell what is real. That is true. Synthetic spam is real. Fake reviews are real. Deepfakes are real. So I understand why regulators want machine-readable AI labels. But the problem is that this solution does not only touch bad actors, it touches everyone. It touches the person using AI to clean up their English. It touches the student using it as a tutor. It touches the disabled person using it as an accessibility tool. It touches the developer asking for code comments. It touches the worker drafting a sensitive HR email. It touches the writer testing ideas they are not ready to share. It touches the person trying to think privately. That is what makes this feel like overreach. The system is sold as transparency, but it creates a new form of invisible traceability. And traceability is power. If a school can scan your essay, that is power. If an employer can scan your writing, that is power. If a publisher can reject work because a detector reports a watermark, that is power. If a company controls the only reliable detector for its own watermark, that is power. And if you cannot inspect the system, remove the mark, or even know exactly when it applies, then you are not holding the power. You are subject to it. Watermarking is not just a safety feature, it is a control feature, and control features always expand. The next problem is false confidence. Institutions love tools that produce clean labels. Human AI, original, suspicious, compliant, non-compliant, but writing is not that clean. AI use is not binary. There's a huge difference between an AI wrote the entire essay, an AI helped outline it, an AI fixed grammar, an AI rewrote one awkward paragraph, an AI generated code that a developer reviewed and changed. Those are completely different levels of involvement. But detection systems tend to flatten nuance. Once a hidden watermark is detected, many people will stop asking what actually happened. They will just say, this was AI, and that becomes the accusation. The person then has to explain themselves to a system that already looks objective because the detector does not know your context. It does not know whether AI use was allowed. It does not know whether you edited it. It does not know whether using AI was an accommodation, a workflow, a mistake, or a deception. It only sees a signal, and people will treat the signal like truth. That is how technical systems become bureaucratic weapons. This is why local AI matters. A local AI model runs on your machine, not in Anthropic's cloud, not in OpenAI's cloud, not inside Google's compliance stack, not behind a corporate policy layer you cannot inspect on your hardware, under your control. When you run a local model, your prompts do not need to leave your computer. Your drafts do not need to be sent to a server. Your experiments do not need to be logged by a provider. Your output does not need to be shaped by hidden watermarking rules unless the model or tool you choose adds them. Local AI does not automatically solve every problem. Local models can be weaker, they can be slower, they may not match frontier cloud models on the hardest tasks, but they give you something cloud models increasingly do not: control. And control is becoming more valuable than raw benchmark performance. Because the best model in the world is a bad deal if it quietly marks your output, stores your workflow, changes behavior because of legal pressure, or refuses to let you use it for legitimate work because a policy team somewhere decided your task looks suspicious. For casual questions, maybe that does not matter. For private writing, it does. For sensitive code, it does. For business strategy, it does. For anything where the process is as sensitive as the output, local AI is not a hobbyist preference. It is digital self-defense. People often talk about local AI like it is mainly about saving money. That is part of it, but the bigger reason is privacy. Cloud AI asks you to put your thinking into someone else's machine. Not just your final answer, your messy draft, your half-formed idea, your confidential code, your client context, your business plan. Everything. And then you have to trust the provider's promises about retention, training, logging, abuse monitoring, compliance, and access controls. Maybe those promises are sincere, maybe the company is well run, but that is still trust. Local AI reduces the amount of trust required. You do not need a privacy policy if the prompt never leaves your machine. You do not need to wonder whether a compliance system marked your text if the generation happened locally under your control. That is a completely different relationship with the tool. Cloud AI feels like renting intelligence from a landlord. Local AI feels like owning a tool. And as the landlord adds more rules, more labels, more telemetry, and more invisible infrastructure, ownership starts looking a lot less optional. Now, there is one real argument in favor of watermarking that I think is genuinely interesting. It helps AI labs avoid training future models on AI-generated content scraped from the web. That sounds like an internal AI company problem, but it matters. Large language models train on massive amounts of text. Historically, a lot of that text came from the open web, but the open web is now filling up with AI-generated material, AI blog posts, AI comments, AI social posts, AI code. If future models blindly train on that material, they can end up learning from the outputs of previous models. That creates a feedback loop. AI generates content. The content gets posted online. The next AI trains on it. Then it learns the habits, mistakes, bland phrasing, and distortions of earlier AI systems. Then it generates even more of that. That is the model collapse concern. Not that one AI paragraph ruins a model, but that too much synthetic data in the training set can make models lose diversity, lose rare patterns, and drift away from the real human distribution they were supposed to learn from. So yes, watermarks can help labs filter training data. They can downweight AI-generated text. They can avoid training the next model on the exhaust of the last model. But notice what it means. The watermark is not primarily for you. It is for machines. It is for regulators. It is for the companies building the next model that may help the ecosystem, but it does not make the overreach harmless. A system can have one good use and still be a nightmare when applied broadly to everyday people. There's also a brutal incentive problem. The companies that comply will watermark the people trying to deceive may avoid watermarking. Big labs will follow rules. Bad actors will use unmarked models. Local models, fine-tunes, custom models, old models, open models, and shady APIs may not include the same markings. So who gets detected? Often the ordinary person using a mainstream compliant tool who avoids detection, often the person who deliberately routes around the system that is backwards. The student using Claude to improve grammar may get flagged. The spammer using an unmarked model may not. The employee using an approved assistant may leave signals. The person hiding something may strip, paraphrase, translate, or regenerate through another model. This is why watermarking cannot be treated like a final answer. It will mostly discipline the compliant. It will mostly inconvenience normal users. It will mostly create new scanning infrastructure, and the people with the strongest incentive to evade it will still evade it. That does not mean watermarking is useless. It means you should not surrender control of your own work because someone says the system is for safety. Safety is often the word used when control becomes socially acceptable. For developers, this is especially important. Claude is not just writing essays. Claude is writing code. It is editing repositories. It is creating pull requests. It is generating documentation. It is drafting commit messages. It is writing tests. It is writing comments. So if AI output becomes watermarked, developers need to ask what happens to code. Will companies scan repositories for AI-generated code? Will open-source maintainers reject AI-assisted contributions? Will employers use AI origin signals to measure developer performance? Will legal teams use watermark evidence in copyright disputes? Will future coding models downweight code written by other models? Maybe some of that sounds paranoid, but it will not sound paranoid once the scanning tools exist. Once a detector is cheap, someone will use it. Once a metric is easy, management will ask for it. Once a platform can label output, policy will expand. That is why developers should build local AI into their workflow now. Use cloud models when you need frontier performance, but do not make cloud models your only path. Have a local coding assistant, have local summarization, have local drafting, have local search over your own notes and code, have a model you can run without asking permission. Because if all your AI capability depends on remote providers, then your workflow can be changed by a policy update, a pricing change, a regional law, a moderation rule, an outage, an account flag, or a hidden watermarking requirement. That is not resilience. That is dependency. The real lesson is not never use Claude. Claude is useful, ChatGPT is useful, Gemini is useful, Cloud AI is powerful. The lesson is that Cloud AI is not neutral infrastructure, it is controlled infrastructure. And controlled infrastructure accumulates obligations. Sometimes those layers are reasonable, sometimes they prevent real harm, sometimes they are required by law. But they still move control away from the user. When the model runs locally, you're much closer to owning the tool. When the model runs in the cloud, you're asking permission from the tool, and the more the cloud tools add invisible markings, provenance systems, detectors, refusals, logging, and policy layers, the clearer that distinction becomes. So Claude, hiding watermarks in AI-generated text should not be treated like a quirky technical feature. It is a warning. It shows where cloud AI is going. More compliance, more machine-readable labels, more invisible infrastructure around what you create. And yes, there is a legitimate upside. Watermarks can help AI companies avoid training future models on AI-generated junk from the web that matters, but it does not erase the bigger problem. Once ordinary writing can carry hidden signals controlled by AI companies, every institution that wants to judge, rank, filter, punish, or distrust AI use gets a new tool. Schools will use it, employers will use it, governments will use it, and eventually people will start changing how they write because they know machines may be scanning the origin of the text. That is not the future I want, so my takeaway is simple. Use local AI models wherever you can. Use cloud models deliberately, not by default. Do not put every private thought, draft, script, codebase, and creative experiment through someone else's policy machine, because if the model is remote, the overreach is built into the relationship. And if the output can be invisibly marked, scanned, and judged later, then the only sane response is to keep as much of your AI workflow local as possible.